Good evening. Welcome to the August 19th, 2019 Troy City Council meeting. Councilman Pennington just arrived, so we're going to give him a minute.
He's got a knack. Traffic.
Okay, we are pleased this evening to have Councilman Henderson lead us with the invocation. So if you would please rise for that and then remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Heavenly Father, we thank you for this wonderful day that you've given us again today. We pray that you'll be with us throughout this meeting as we make decisions regarding our great city. Pray that you'll be with our first responders, our police and our fire departments as they go through their days and their shifts protecting the citizens of Troy. We ask all this in your name. Amen.
Amen. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Councilman Henderson. The Troy City Council meeting is now called to order. The roll call, Ms. Dixon.
Mayor Slater?
Here.
Councilmember Abraham?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Baker?
Here.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Here.
Councilmember Henderson?
Here.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Here.
Councilmember Pennington?
Here.
All present. First on the agenda are certificates of recognition and special presentations. C1 is on behalf of the City of Troy Employees Casual for Cause program. Cindy Stewart, our Community Affairs Director, will present a check this evening. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. It's my pleasure tonight to present a check for $592 to Blanca Fulbel. She's the Director of Development for the Haven. That was one of our picks for Casual for Cause, and I didn't know if she knew, but the employees, we can wear jeans on Fridays, and we donate money, and then we pick some worthwhile charities, and we chose the Haven. So there you go.
Thank you.
And you might want to let everybody know a little bit about the Haven.
Sure.
Thank you very much. On behalf of Haven, our leadership, our board of directors, and the more than 30,000 survivors that we provide service to every year. We're honored to be here tonight because we don't charge for any of our services, and we are the only Oakland County agency that offers comprehensive services for survivors of intimate partner violence and sexual assault. And our services include a crisis line that operates 24 hours a day, 365 days a week. We are more than a shelter, and we do have a shelter. It's an emergency shelter that can house up to 50 to 55 people. Most of them usually are children. We also have counseling, and we have different modalities of counseling. We have family counseling. We have one-on-one counseling. We do children's counseling because we also service some of the children that have been sexually assaulted. We also have a social action group of folks that know how to navigate the legal system, that help survivors that are going to court, that have filed for a personal protection order. We have an office in Oakland County, and we staff the personal protection office there, so we assist in any kind of filing as well. We also have a prevention education program where we are in the schools, and we teach young children about healthy relationships, good touch, bad touch, good secrets, bad secrets, and adults that we can trust. And we have tons of stories, success stories, in how we've been able to help some of the children that have been in situations. We also have a beautiful garden that's an organic garden that produces close to 2,500 pounds of produce, organic produce, that we use in our shelter to teach the people that are in the shelter how to cook healthy meals, and also use it as an area for grounding and for therapy. So this money is going to be so helpful in providing these services, and I invite all of you to come and let us give you a tour like we gave Chief of Police a tour, and he was very impressed with it. So thank you so much. It's a great organization. We have 50 employees, and all of the employees have either a master's degree in psychology or in counseling or social work, and they're required to continue their education. And they're there because they're very passionate about what they do. So thank you so much. Really appreciate it. And we have some materials that we're going to leave behind in terms of fact sheets.
got it.
Oh, wow, that was fast. Efficient. Thank you again.
so much.
Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you to Haven for the service you provide to the residents of our city, and thank you to the employees for donating such a generous amount. Next is C2, Citizens Academy. There will be a presentation by Drew Benson, the assistant to the city manager, and Stephanie Flusher, our marketing coordinator. Good evening.
Evening, Mayor, members of City Council. So just a quick presentation for you all. This was a topic that was a city strategy a while back, and over the course of the last year we've been working on it, and as we prepare to roll it out, we wanted to kind of give you all an update and give you the opportunity to ask any questions prior to doing so. So as you may remember, the Citizens Academy is a program the city used to do. It's a series of classes for members of the community who want to learn more about how their city operates. A lot of people, 84,000 plus, live here, but not everyone understands, what the city does. What services do we provide? How does a fire truck really work? How does your snow get picked up? Things like that. So this program, it's open to a limited number of participants just because of space, but it gives them the opportunity to get face-to-face with, the people and the services and the equipment that we use to provide services. It includes tours of our various facilities, the police department, public works, fire stations, and we're planning to roll it out in the fall of 2019, so just a month or so from now.
So the original Citizens Academy ran from 2001 through 2007, and it was eventually canceled in 2008. Council determined that the reimagining of Citizens Academy was a priority, and over the course of the last year, we have worked to recreate the program with the help of Cindy Stewart and the rest of city staff.
And just as a highlight, this program used to run in the fall and spring, and that's something that we're hoping to bring back. The fall is sort of our trial run. We'll see. We've already had a good number of applications, and we're looking forward to getting feedback and hopefully running this in the spring again and going forward. So similar to how it previously worked, we're looking at an 8-week program, Wednesdays from 5:30 to 8:30, and participants will, again, get to see a fire station, fire trucks, taking a tour around the Public Works facility, get to meet our planning and zoning, economic development people, and really get an understanding of all of the things that the city does to provide services for businesses and for citizens. It will conclude with a graduation ceremony with you all to recognize their efforts in what is, that's a lot of time. That's a lot of hours for people to take out of their days and their lives to try to become more informed and get involved with the city.
So who should participate? Really anyone who's interested in learning more about what the city does. We do ask that they be over the age of 16. And hopefully they potentially have interest in getting involved in our boards and committees. Preference is given to residents of Troy, although we do accept everyone if they're interested. And space is limited. We checked before we gave this presentation. We actually have allotted for 20 spaces. We're at 19 right now, so that's pretty good. And we also want to let people know that we are accepting applications on a first-come, first-served basis, but because we're doing the spring session, we will save their application for the spring if they don't get it in, soon. And we do also ask that they have the ability to get themselves from point A to point B. So there are some sessions where we ask that they start at the Troy Historic Village and then move to the Stage Nature Center. They would need to have some sort of transportation to and from. And applications are due August 30th, but really that's for this session. People are able to continue to submit applications for spring.
And I will say, along with taking, first come, first serve, we're trying to prioritize individuals who can attend the most amount of sessions. in this particular round, the fall may not work for some participants where they have to miss 2, 3, 4. And whereas there may be another participant, right behind them who can attend all of them. So there is a little bit of that, but primarily it is first come, first serve. So with that, does anyone have any questions?
Thank you. Questions from council? Thank you. Councilwoman Abraham.
No questions, just a comment. I can't tell you how pleased I am that we're reconvening the Troy Citizens Academy. I am a graduate from the 2014 spring class, and I can't tell you how enlightening those sessions were. The hands-on experiences, the field trips, it really helps give depth and understanding to what a civic employee does, how our police department runs, how our volunteer fire department, all the miracles they perform, how they can manage it. It is very eye-opening, and if anyone has any bit of interest, I highly encourage you to apply. Even if you can't get in this session, if you can get in the spring. It is 3 hours every week for 8 weeks. Time very well spent. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Well done. Thank you. There are no carryover items this evening or public hearings, so we will move to public comment for items on the agenda from Troy residents and businesses. Cynthia Wilshire, Troy resident, wishes to speak on N1.
Good evening, all.
Good evening.
In the last few meetings, quite a bit has been said about ethics and the fact that there are no penalties in our charter concerning ethics. I have been on the Charter Revision Board, since it was a board and it's now a committee, for over 25 years. I think this would be an appropriate time, since we haven't had a meeting in 10 years. We used to meet quarterly at least, and I know last week, or the last meeting, you appointed 2 new people, or one has been on, but 2 new persons on that committee. And I think it would be very appropriate to have the Charter Revision look at that portion of the charter and figure out what we can do about it. And also, regarding the Citizens Academy, I was in one of the first classes, and my daughter followed me in 2 years later. That's fantastic. Everybody should take it, and they'll know what's going on. Also, I have a suggestion. I'm putting in a new driveway, and I didn't want to get into the problems that Mayor Slater had. So I went to the department to find out what the deal was on putting in a new concrete driveway. I was very surprised to find out you don't need a permit if you're just putting in a driveway, but if you're putting in sidewalk and an approach, you do need a permit, which was very eye-opening. And I know several of my friends have done things around their homes that I knew required permits from the city, which they knew nothing about. And I would like to suggest that you put a list of things that need permits in the Troy today, so people will know what they will have to do if they want to do something in their house and do it legally to keep our standards up in the city. That's all I've got to say, and I hope you engage us in the charter revision to look at that, because it seems to be a problem. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I'll call on John Clueless, who wishes to speak this evening on N1.
I rise today to address Council Agenda Item N1, the resolution to investigate Council. I heartily support this resolution for the following reasons. First, I find Mr. Pennington's claims to be ignorant of what the FBI is investigating laughable. Tell me, Mr. Pennington, when Mr. Henderson was interviewed by the FBI, how quickly did you find out about it? Was it that day, or did Mr. Henderson wait to tell you over a round of golf on the weekend? Did he tell you that the FBI was asking him about developers, as he stated during a recent session of council? And when did Mr. Slater know? And did any of you bother to inform the rest of council? I'd wager you didn't, but I would wager that the three of you all knew about Mr. Henderson's interview well before everyone else on council. So stop pretending to be clueless. Mr. Henderson, since the last meeting, you welcomed questions about your involvement with Brian Kishnick in order to, quote, clear the air, end quote. So I'll ask again the same two questions you've refused to answer so far. How long did Brian Kishnick stay in your home after his wife kicked him out because he was committing adultery? And did you attend the Christmas party where Brian Kishnick extorted bribes? A second reason to support the investigation of this council is found in the handouts I've given you. The first is the protective order from the Ryan Wolf lawsuit. On page 2, you'll read that recordings are now protected by court order. What recordings? Did Mr. Wolf make recordings of city staff and or council? Is that why this council was so eager to settle this matter? So in Mr. Henderson's spirit of clearing the air, this council should demand the order be lifted so we can have transparency and truth in this matter. The second handout is part of a Troy Police Department report made about the conduct of one Jack Hardick. The fact that you can see his name indicates something important. His criminal activity was not prosecuted. I thought the policy of this council was to prosecute drug crimes. Why wasn't he? Was there untoward influence exerted to protect the son of a seated judge? And who would exert such influence? We know that Mr. Slater has used his influence to obtain a driveway completely out of process. We know that Mr. Slater had Mr. Kishnick change the gas supplier to the father of his former campaign manager. Would Mr. Slater prevent the prosecution of the son of a close friend and seated judge? I'd like to have some answers to my questions, and an investigation is the only way we'll actually get to the truth. Any refusal to support the resolution will further stain this council and disqualify one from continued service upon it. Thank you.
Next, I'll call on Aaron Green, Troy resident, who wishes to speak on N1. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I've been up here the last few meetings because I've had thoughts on the matter. I'm not the only one. I don't have a whole lot fresh to say on those topics, but I hold to what I've said. But I do want to come up and spend some more time thanking specifically the council people who have, since the beginning, actively been saying, we need to do something about this. And when I say the beginning, I mean from the very beginning, whether they were listened to or agreed with or in the majority or otherwise. Thank you, Councilwoman Hoderick, for trying to be transparent and open and honest and investigate when there seems to be something worth investigating, even if it might lead to nothing. That's why you investigate. Thank you for always trying to do the right thing, being fair to the citizens, and putting it all out there to try and get that air cleared, because we are such a large city, we are so important, and it's important that we are open that way. Thank you, Councilwoman Ibrahim, for being so incredibly professional and ethical to, I can't say to a fault, you've been ethical to the nth degree. You've been very, very clear in everything that you've said to make sure, both of you have made sure that you are not impugning anyone or saying anything negative without any cause or any claim. You are always out there being very clear that you want to know the truth and you want to provide the truth to the citizens and do what is right for them at whatever cost that is, because as public servants, that's the job, and you have done it incredibly well. Others of you on council have done an excellent job at various times. I can't point to specifics immediately right now. Councilman Baker, thank you so much for bringing this, bringing N1 to the table, bringing this recommendation. It's really important to get this out there and to talk about it and to to continue to try to heal, to try to move forward, to try to get everything that's out there or that's not out there so that everybody can take it, look at it, and as a council and as a city and city management, grow from it, build on it, and move on as an excellent city. Thank you, Councilman Hamilton, for bringing some of this to light in the first place in this most recent set of sessions. You've been pushing for ethics since the beginning, since you joined council, and it's been critical to have you on council to make sure that moves forward. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next, I'll call on Steve Teggy, Troy resident, who wishes to speak on N1. Good evening.
Good evening, everyone. I just want to provide a little counter to this. I wrote this stuff down. I couldn't print it out. My printer wouldn't work, but I'm going to kind of burn through it fast. The times I address the city council, that's usually what I do. But first of all, I appreciate all the work you guys do as part-time volunteers. This is a lot of crap to have to go through, and it's much appreciated. I've never had an issue with transparency. So I just wanted to say I moved to Troy in 2010. And that was right after that was when the whole Janice Daniels thing came on, and the press was all over the city of Troy. We were getting lectures from the state of Michigan, and I felt compelled to come and address the council just to kind of defend you guys, because I know Troy is not what people were making it out to be. So I just wanted to say, lately, after seeing several more unnecessary news reports about Troy and watching all the sniping going on social media, I felt compelled to come and ask that we stop with all the investigations and accusations, and let's get back to work as a city. It's a great place to live. The FBI investigation is done. The corrupt guy's gone. He's in jail. I feel like I'm going to go off script, but I feel like that was money well spent. We got the job done. Now, the rest of it, I just don't see why we need another investigation. Let's sort it out amongst yourselves. All communicate with one another. I don't know why. We've spent a lot of money already. And I find it hard to believe that any of you on the council, as part-time elected officials, would put your own lives and careers in danger to be complicit, part of this culture of complicity, which anytime you get into vague things like that, maybe you need a management review, not a legal investigation, because being a military guy, I can attest to some of that. But my concern is that right now we're going into an election season. And this is very handy that this is happening at the time it is. We're all going to start throwing accusations around and trying to run your opposition out of the town through legal mechanisms. That's how I see it. So, just on a last thing, as a former infantryman, I had to make very difficult decisions in combat, to include almost getting in a fist fight with one of my peers in the city of Mosul. So, what did we do? We sorted it out. We didn't call the boss. We didn't try to bring in anybody else. We figured out how to work with each other, as we did with all our other guys, under a lot of stress. And I don't want to see a bunch of council members going through all this digging and digging and digging that's going to happen, because if they want to find something, they will. And so let's stop it and let's move on as a city. I understand disagreement, but we need to, even when it's uncomfortable. You know, everybody, you all need to fight with each other. I don't think fighting and yelling and screaming in a boardroom is necessarily a bad thing, as long as you come out at the end and you go drink a beer together. I've been through it a million times. So that's my humble request as a citizen of Troy, as we stop wasting money running down ghosts, and let's get to work and keep the city growing and the beautiful place that it is. There's new stuff going up everywhere. I think it's got a great future. Let's keep it that way. Thanks.
Thank you. Now is an opportunity for City Council or City Administration to respond to public comments. Any response this evening? Mayor Pro Tem Baker.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you all who spoke. Mr. Teggy, thank you for your service, and thank you for coming up and speaking. I hope you'll stick around and listen to the discussion of N1 when we get there. Obviously, I have a bit of a different viewpoint, but I hope you do listen and we can work through it. So, thank you.
Next on the agenda, and thank you also for those that came. Next is regular business. I-1, there are no mayoral appointments or city council appointments this evening. I-2A are mayoral appointments. I have one nomination. I have one nomination I'd like to place in the record this evening, and that is for the Student intern for the Global Troy Advisory Committee, I'd like to place in the nomination Arjan Tholakabali for the term that expires 7/31/2020.
Support.
Moved by the chair and supported by Councilwoman Abraham that we nominate Arjan Tholakabali as the student intern to the Global Troy Advisory Committee for the term that expires 7/31/2020. Any discussion? The vote, Ms. Dixon.
Mayor Slater?
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Councilmember Henderson?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Councilmember Pennington?
Yes.
Motion passes, and thank you to Arjan for volunteering to be on that important committee. That concludes the mayoral nominations, the city council nominations this evening. Mayor Pro Tem Baker.
Thank you, Mayor. To the Parks and Recreation Board, I'd like to nominate Timothy Fulcher as the Troy School Board of Education rep for the term expiring July 31st, 2020. Julia Judy Baker, no relation, for the term expiring September 30, 2022, and Pamela Brady for the term expiring September 30, 2022.
Support.
Moved by Mayor Pro Tem Baker and supported by Councilwoman Hoderick that we nominate Timothy Fulcher to the Troy School Board of Education as the rep for the term that expires 7/31/2020. Julia Baker and Pamela Brady to the Parks and Recreation Board for the terms that expire 9/30/2022. Any discussion? The vote, Ms. Dixon.
Councilmember Abraham?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Councilmember Henderson?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Councilmember Pennington?
Yes.
Mayor Slater?
Yes. Motion passes, and thank you to those residents for also stepping forward to be nominated for a committee. Does that conclude? Thank you. I3 is a request for closed session. There is a request. Mayor Pro Tem Baker.
I'd like to move I3, request for closed session. Be it resolved that Troy City Council shall meet in closed session as permitted by MCL 15.268H, MCL 16.243G.
Or
Moved by Mayor Pro Tem Baker and supported by Councilman Pennington that we approve I3, a request for closed session as read and printed in the agenda packet. Any discussion? The vote, Ms. Dixon.
Mayor Pro Tem Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Councilmember Henderson?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Councilmember Pennington?
Yes.
Mayor Slater?
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham?
Yes.
Motion passes. That concludes regular business. We will move to the consent agenda. Any council member wish to pull a consent agenda item this evening? Councilman Henderson.
I'd like to move all items on a consent agenda as printed.
Support.
Moved by Councilman Henderson, supported by Mayor Pro Tem Baker, that we approve all items on the consent agenda as presented and printed in the agenda packet. Any discussion on those items? Mayor Pro Tem Baker.
Real quick, I just want to say thank you to Haven, to the Troy Community Coalition, to Troy Youth Assistance and Avondale Youth Assistance. You do great work, and I'm happy to support this, the funding for you.
The vote, Ms. Dixon?
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Councilmember Henderson?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Councilmember Pennington?
Yes.
Mayor Slater?
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Baker?
Yes.
Motion passes. If you are here on a consent agenda item this evening, they've all been approved. There are no memorandums and future council agenda items in the packet this evening. I don't see that anyone has signed up for public comment on items not on the agenda from Troy residents and businesses. Next are council referrals. We have one council referral this evening, and one is a council referral from Councilmember Ethan Baker, so I will call upon him.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to read this into the record to move it. So I'd like to move N1, council referral from Councilmember Ethan Baker. Whereas on January 24th, 2019, former Troy City Manager Brian Kishnick was sentenced to 30 months in federal prison after he pled guilty to bribery as part of a negotiated plea deal on August 22nd, 2018, and is currently incarcerated in federal prison. And whereas on December 17, 2018, Troy City Council authorized city management to enter into an agreement with Plant Moran, PLLC, hereinafter Plant Moran, to provide forensic audit services for the City of Troy for the time period relating to Brian Kishnick's tenure as City Manager of the City of Troy, Resolution number 2018-12-196-J-4B. And whereas on July 17, 2019, at a Troy City Council special meeting, Troy City Council authorized the release of the forensic engagement report prepared and submitted to the city by its consultant Plant Moran, and directed that the report be included in the most appropriate location on the city's webpage and included in the City Council agenda packet for the next regular City Council meeting, and available for request under the Freedom of Information Act, Resolution number 2019-07-072B. And whereas the forensic engagement report states on page 20, quote, overall, it appears there was a culture of complicity in that many people knew Brian Kishnick was violating policy and potentially the law, but they were complicit in their actions due to the tone established by Brian Kishnick and council. And whereas the forensic engagement report states on page 20, quote, the apparent poor tone at the top, combined with Brian Kishnick's and at times other officials' aggressive behavior, to include screaming so loud it could be heard through the walls in other rooms, left many personnel to feel their employment was at risk if they questioned and/or went against Brian Kishnick. And whereas the forensic engagement report states on page 21, former Financial Services Director Tom Darling stated, quote, in my mind, I'm pretty assured that certain council members knew of this stuff going on. I knew the council pretty well, and you know what? They didn't have a problem with it, the tone from the top. And whereas the final forensic engagement report states on page 21, quote, it will be critical that the city establishes a tone at the top valuing integrity/ethics and enforcing consequences when integrity/ethics are not displayed, or the city could be destined for a repeat situation. And whereas there are members of the public that have questioned whether specific actions of individual Troy City Council members during Brian Kishnick's tenure as the Troy City Manager contributed to the culture of complicity, as referenced in the Plant Moran Forensic Engagement Report. And whereas the Troy City Council greatly values all City of Troy residents and intends to make all residents feel heard and respected. And whereas it is in the best interest of the City of Troy to do everything it can to determine if there were actions taken or not taken by individual Troy City Council members during Brian Kishnick's tenure as Troy City Manager that contributed to the culture of complicity as referenced in the Plant Moran Forensic Engagement Report, so that the City of Troy and its residents can move forward in a positive, engaged, and transparent manner, and to further protect the City of Troy from potentially repeating something like this again in the future. And whereas the City of Troy Charter provides Troy City Council the power to investigate matters in which the City of Troy has an interest, providing a pertinent part in Section 4.8 investigations, the Council or any person or committee authorized by it for the purpose shall have power to inquire into the conduct of any department, office, or officer, and to make investigations as to matters in which the municipality has an interest. The Council, for the purposes stated herein, may summon witnesses, administer oaths, and compel attendance of witnesses, and the production of books, papers, and other evidence. And whereas Troy City Council has previously authorized investigations of former city manager Brian Kishnick and his conduct as Troy City Manager by former City of Troy Labor Attorney Craig W. Lang and Plant Moran, yet has not authorized any investigation into the conduct of Troy City Council during the same time period. And whereas an independent investigation of Troy City Council is intended to decrease the likelihood of Troy City Council and its current members from repeating previous mistakes and providing guidance and clarity to future members of Troy City Council. Therefore, be it resolved that Troy City Council hereby authorizes the City Attorney to work with outside Labor Counsel McGraw-Morris to prepare a scope of work to secure an independent investigation of all members of Troy City Council under the provisions provided in City of Troy Charter Section 4.8 investigations. This scope of work would explore whether or not any member of Troy City Council played a role in creating the culture of complicity that enabled former Troy City Manager Brian Kishnick's wrongdoings and crimes. Be it further resolved that this scope of work shall be limited to actions or inactions relating to a member of Troy City Council's role as a member of council and his or her interactions with former City Manager Brian Kishnick and/or City of Troy employees. Be it further resolved, the City Attorney, working with outside Labor Counsel, shall obtain informal proposals for a neutral third-party investigator or investigative team and present options to the Troy City Council at the next regular council meeting. Be it further resolved that all members of Troy City Council shall cooperate with the independent third-party investigator or investigative team, which may include an interview or questioning under oath and under penalty of perjury. And be it further resolved that the Troy City Council intends to fully release any report completed as a result of the investigation, as well as any documents in support of the conclusions. And be it further resolved that Troy City Council hereby reaffirms its commitment to transparency, proper oversight, and the Troy City Council Code of Ethics signed by all members of Troy City Council on December 17th, 2018.
Support.
Moved by Mayor Pro Tem Baker and supported by Councilman Hamilton to approve N1 as read into the record by Mayor Pro Tem Baker. Discussion. Mayor Pro Tem Baker.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you all for listening. I know that was a lot to take in like that, but I felt it was important to read the full referral because there's language in there that I think is very important. The forensic engagement report that Plant Moran did left questions for me at least, and I'm assuming for others. It spoke about a culture of complicity. It spoke about apparent poor tone at the top, combined with Brian Kishnick's, and at time, other officials' aggressive behavior, but it doesn't define or explain or extrapolate in any way who those other officials are. And again, it talks about other officials' aggressive behavior. That concerns me greatly as a member of this city council on behalf of the residents of the city of Troy. Troy has, a stellar reputation in many respects, and we are a city that continues to thrive in spite of what I referred to recently as a cloud relating to Brian Kishnick and some of the issues before this council. But there still exists that cloud because, like the referral says, we've investigated Brian Kishnick twice. The FBI has investigated. I understand they're still investigating. It's not completed. We've been told recently they're still investigating. The council hasn't been looked at from an ethical standpoint. I fully have faith in the FBI that they're looking at crimes and they're looking at criminal behavior or no criminal behavior and they're doing their job. But I think it's incumbent upon us as council members to do our job and to look into whether or not the ethics of this council have been properly handled over the past few years. So there is a major difference for me. Again, the FBI has and continues to do their job looking at crimes. I'm not looking to investigate crimes. I don't think that's our role. But we do sign a code of ethics every year, and I think it's important that we look at whether or not any of those have been breached. We talk about clearing the air. I said this at previous meetings. So many of us, I hear you, Mr. Tagey. I hear a lot of people. Can't we just stop talking about Brian Kishnick and all of this stuff? Can't we just move on? Just let it go? Yeah, I think that's what everybody wants, but how everybody gets there is the question, and that's what we have a duty to do up here. We can't just side with some people and just say, okay, fine, we're done. We need to overturn every rock to make sure we've looked for everything we need to and move forward, to be able to move forward in the positive way. And as some have said to me, you're never going to be able to please everybody. There's still going to be people who are going to complain about it. I hear that, and I understand that. But we still have to overturn this rock and see if council has any wrongdoing here from an ethical standpoint. The mayor brought up the employees at the last meeting, I think it was, and I greatly value our city employees. I know we all do. How the city employees get treated by all of us is very important to me, which is why I think this investigation is so important. I strongly believe from my work as a lawyer, a healthy and safe workplace makes a healthy and safe employee, which creates a better employee. And we want that environment for this city and for the city employees. And I value their time, and I know they've been through a lot over the past few years, but I also firmly believe that the city employees who care so much about this city would work through this investigation with us for the good of the city. Most importantly, this investigation should be used as an educational tool for this council and for future councils. History does repeat itself. We've all learned it in history class. we all said, well, why do we have to learn about this? Well, and the teacher always says it's because history repeats itself. And if we don't figure out what went wrong from our standpoint, and maybe there's nothing that any of us did wrong, and that would be great for the city. If we don't look at that and figure out what it is, it's not going to be a Brian Kishnick situation exactly, but there'll be another Brian Kishnick situation in the future. It'll be something. There's always that chance. And so if we can use this as a teaching tool for, like I said, this council and for future councils as to what proper ethics look like for this city and this community and for this council, and how we can do our best to keep something like this from happening again in the future, then we will all be better served. And I think we can all move forward in the positive manner we need to. So I think that's it for now.
Councilman Pennington.
Well, I agree with Councilmember Baker. Ethics are very important to me. I've run a business in Troy for 52 years. Ethics have always been a part of my business. I've always been an upstanding citizen, and that's why I was asked to be on City Council, to help out with City Council. I feel I'm the only council member here who's a non-politician. Everyone else here, I think, is looking towards their next election. I think that when I was reading this, all I could think of was the election, and I think the fourth paragraph from the bottom, be it further resolved, the city attorney working with outside labor counsel shall obtain informal proposals for a neutral third-party investigator or investigative team and present options to the Troy Council before the next, it should be changed to before the next election, because Resident Tagey hit the nail on the head. This is all about, in my mind when I read it, this is all about the election. I don't think, it took Plant Moran 9 months to get us a report, and for you to ask McGraw Morris to get us a report in a week's time, I don't know if that's possible, but that's the way I see it. I know others may see it differently.
Thank you. Councilman Hoderick, did you want to speak? Or?
I can, if you.
Thank you.
I was just processing what Councilman Pennington was saying. I don't think the resolution reads that the report would be done by the next council meeting, but that proposals for a neutral third-party investigator or investigative team to present options to Troy City Council for how that might proceed, not a report itself. I agree there would be no way that could be turned around that quickly. Just to clarify, Mayor Pro Tem Baker, that was your intention, was?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like it says.
Okay. At the last meeting, I spoke, frankly, about my passion for this topic, and I appreciate the time and energy it took to do this referral. In all my times on boards and volunteering, I've been on a number of boards, volunteered in a number of organizations, 30-year resident of Troy, raised my kids here. I'm a mom serving here and trying to bring that perspective. Also worked in the private sector on corporate teams. And this is the type, expressed in this referral, the type of willingness that I saw consistently in all of those activities in these leadership roles in these organizations to work hard to guard against unethical behavior. And it feels good to feel it here at this table now and to be talking in these terms. I think our residents need to see and hear us embracing it wholeheartedly. In the referral, it talks about the code of ethics. And when I look back to when a decision was made, and I participated in it, to continue on with Brian Kishnick as city manager a year after the original investigation, I became very concerned about the tone that could be set. And we had very specific discussions that December and that January about the importance of this. So fast forward to this forensic audit, which explored some specific things. It comes back to us and it's pointing the finger at council. Okay, I accept that. It could be as simple as the vote that we did that August, or it could be more. I am very concerned that staff was expressing that they could not speak up. When we spoke about speaking up, and that we would support the speaking up. So that makes me pause. Mr. Taggy, I appreciate what you talked about in Mosul. We've had those moments where we've had to clear the air with someone in all my years of working. It happens. While I don't begin to suggest some sort of possession of in-depth investigative experience, I had some recent experience working in a corporate investigative environment, looking at compliance and investigative work. And it wasn't always about criminal behavior, although some did come up, but it was about the ethical compliance behaviors of fellow employees, management employees, that would need to be looked at. An investigation would be opened and sometimes lead to additional things that we needed to investigate or that the team needed to look at. When it leads to a new surfacing potential issue, the corporate environment embraces that. A new case is opened and professional, dispassionate scrutiny occurs to make sure that there isn't a potential problem or something to learn from or something to be improved upon. Evidence points to issues with this council. I'm willing to own that, and I'm willing to be scrutinized. We have had our employees scrutinized thoroughly. We should be too. There's patterns of behavior that suggest I can't look the other way and move on with a good, clear conscience. It's not in the best interest of the city for me to ignore what my gut is telling me to do. I believe support of this referral is the right thing to do, and I'll be supporting it.
Thank you. Any other comments on the referral? Councilman Henderson?
Yeah, I'd like to, I support this as well, as long as it doesn't cost us another $60,000 plus whatever overruns. So in terms of how this is written, I think at our next meeting, Attorney Bloom, you'll have some guidance in terms of
Yes, that
what those
is,
costs might be.
that is the hope. Certainly, I would welcome, again, if the resolution is passed, I would welcome input from all of the council members individually as to, kind of defining what it is that you're looking for. But certainly, we would be seeking proposals, informal proposals, not going through the formal RFP process. I would utilize our labor council, outside labor council. So there will be a cost in that we are using outside labor council to assist me in coming up with the scope of work and then also the proposals. But that's the intent, is to bring them back to you for your deliberation at the next meeting.
Do we have some sense of what that cost over the next couple of weeks is going to be?
I don't.
1,000, 10,000?
It's probably much less than 10,000, I would think.
But more than 1,000?
I would
Probably.
think so, yes.
Okay. Further to that, I said I'd be, willing. In fact, I think last meeting I said I'd, sign me up to be the first interview. But that said, I don't want to have an interview where somebody writes down what I said, analyzes what I said, makes a decision about what they think I said, and then writes a report and then doesn't release it to the public for attorney-client privilege. So I would not be in favor of doing this unless it's on camera, published at one of our regular meetings so that everybody can see what's going on, and all participants waive their attorney-client privilege. If we're not going to be fully transparent in this, I want no part of it. So that would be my only provision. So consider that as you move forward as something that I would want to include in whatever costs that this might materialize into. And I've got my own set of questions for other council members too, because there's some questions that I have about other FBI interviews and personnel issues that have popped up over the last few years. So I would like to be able to participate in that aspect of it, providing questions for others, as well as whatever questions they may have for me and other people on council.
I'm happy, again, assuming that this passes, to collect whatever information individual council members want to provide to me. And then again, I will work with outside labor counsel to present something to council for its consideration at the next meeting.
Let's wait till everybody speaks first.
It goes with what he was just speaking about, but okay.
Councilwoman Abraham, did you have any comments?
Certainly I can speak.
Pardon me?
I said certainly I can speak on this. I appreciate the comments, Mr. Taggy, very much, and certainly the appearance of, does this have, is this all about the election? I think it's extremely unfortunate. It took 7 months for this audit report to come out. I think if the forensic engagement report had come out in, let's say, February, the notion of this being election related would be muted quite a bit, and it is extremely unfortunate timing. Even more unfortunate is the results of that forensic engagement report. The major finding is that the tone at the top in council is the top when it comes to city management. We have to own what those findings are. We need to be held as accountable as anyone else that's been interviewed, whether it's been by the FBI or Mr. Lang or by Plant Moran staff. We need to be just as accountable. I was rereading the forensic engagement report probably for the 10th time just before this council meeting. And I was reading in particular the 12-page memo at the tone at the top, because it did speak to what leadership can do to ensure an ethical organization. Now, the memo was maybe written more towards a public or a private sector company, a large Fortune 500 company, but the message is just the same. There are some things that they said: how can corporate leaders create and maintain an ethical climate? And these were the 4 things that were defined in that memo, and it made a lot of sense. First thing was communicate what is expected, and not just of city staff, but of each other. And I think maybe a revised code of ethics could also define that, as well as maybe some teeth in that code of ethics. Leading by example. I think all of us, if we approach this with positivity and transparency, and I know all of us can, I know we all can, we can show, we can demonstrate to our residents that we can work together for the betterment of the city. We can do it. We've done it before. We've done it under really trying circumstances. Yes, this is another trying circumstance. We can do it. We have a history of getting it done. The third suggestion or recommendation on how to create and maintain an ethical climate was providing a safe mechanism for reporting violations. And I think that also includes council. I mean, again, we read some troubling things in the forensic engagement report that seemed to indicate, you know, some council members maybe knew more stuff than others. Well, we are accountable to each other. We need to provide a safe, judgment-free expression zone at this table so that as Mr. Teggy said, we're not yelling at each other. That's not productive. That's not what we need to do. And the fourth suggestion probably lends itself more to the private sector in a large company, but it's reward integrity. So I don't expect reward for integrity here at the council table, but I do think amongst city staff, it can be encouraged that if you see something, say something. That type of behavior is to be encouraged and rewarded. I have no problems with the suggestions Councilman Henderson has suggested. I have no problems with it being transparent. I think, Mayor Pro Tem Baker, I think your resolution does say that you would release any, or part of the resolution would be to release any report and any supporting documentation, whatever that may be, to the public. So I am supportive of that. I guess I'd like to conclude my thoughts with, I sometimes hear the comment made of, you know, Brian Kitchen's in jail and he was less than a perfect citizen, human, and certainly employee, but he's gone now. Can you put it away? Can you put it aside and move forward? But I feel like I would be derelict in my duty if I didn't understand what contributed to his feeling like he could do anything and that employees could not speak up for fear of retribution or a hostile work environment. There's nothing better than I'd like to do than to not think about Brian Kishnick again, or what he's done to the city, or the dozens, if not hundreds of hours thinking about him and the consequences and working towards resolution. There's nothing I would like better. It would be very easy for me to say, let's just move on, let's not talk about it any further, or wait till after the election. We just need to rip off the Band-Aid now. Let's just do it. Let's find out what happened, how all of us may have contributed to this culture of complicity, and address it. It's as simple as that. And I think we can all do that, and I think it can be a positive experience, and it may be the legacy that this council leaves to future councils, whether it's in 10 years, 20 years, or 50 years. This may be the most important vote that we ever do, and the most important thing that we ever may ever do for this city. So, Mayor Pro Tem Baker, I would be supportive of this measure and this resolution.
Councilman Hamilton, did you have any comments at this point?
I'm in support of this resolution. I thank Councilman Henderson for his suggestions. From what I heard, it sounded reasonable, and thank you that you're going to support this, and I think this is the right way to move forward.
Just a couple comments. The part that bothers me is cost, and I think that's what bothers a lot. Having a discussion with the city attorney, most of this looking at options is going to be done in-house as best that we can to keep the cost at a minimum, to look at options. So I don't have any problem looking at options, and then I'll make my decision based on those options that are presented to us in 2 weeks. So I'll support it, you know, just looking at options. I think it could have been a lot shorter. And got the same effect.
Not sure.
Right? Just my opinion. Does anyone else want to say anything before you, Councilman or Mayor Pro Tem Baker?
Thank you. I just wanted to, thank all of you who spoke. And the last meeting, I said I'd come prepared with something, and you were ready to amend it, as I recall. But
I'll wait.
You'll wait till 3 weeks. So our next meeting's in 3 weeks, which does give a little extra time to present some options. An extra week. There's a holiday in there too. But I am choosing to take a methodical, more piecemeal approach to this than trying to throw something out there and saying this is what we're going to do and this is the way it should be done. because I think we all will be better served if we all have the opportunity to weigh in, provide our thoughts and opinions. I think there's been good things said tonight. And yes, at the time when we're presented with options, we need to do a cost-benefit analysis and see what makes sense and what is good for the city. Councilman Henderson, I completely agree with you on what you were talking about about being on camera. I think the thing none of us want is to have an interview taken of us and then have whoever's doing the report make some editorial conclusions, and that's it. An earlier draft of this resolution, I had specified some more specifics that I later took out, but one of them was that I didn't say on camera necessarily, but our full transcripts of what we said were fully released. So our words will be read no matter what. I think that's very, very important. And also, I had also had an earlier draft that all of us on council would have the opportunity to provide questions that we'd like to see asked as part of this investigation, because I think we all have questions, and if we're doing this investigation, we should be the ones that we should have the opportunity to weigh in as to what things we really want to look at. And that includes some specific questions, I think. It also includes some broad questions, recognizing that whomever we ultimately potentially choose to do this investigation will be conducting the investigation, and we can't necessarily dictate exactly how they do their job from my understanding of how things work. But thank you for the support that I've heard. Obviously, I won't count any eggs or chicks until these eggs are hatched for the vote, but thank you.
Okay. Any other comments? Councilman Henderson.
Yeah, so just in response to Councilman Baker, Mayor Pro Tem Baker's response there, transcripts are not good enough. That's why I'm going to push for video. Transcripts, that got us in trouble in a couple other reports. Somebody's interpretation, and then you read the printed word, you don't get the full feeling of somebody's answer by reading words. So I'll be pushing for not just transcripts, but certainly a full video of all of this.
Great.
Then just keep in mind, this is getting options presented to council. This is not an investigation. The investigations have not been approved. This is looking at options. This is taxpayers' money that you're talking about here to use for this. So, the vote, Ms. Dixon.
Councilmember Henderson?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Councilmember Pennington?
Yes.
Mayor Slater?
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Motion passes. Next on the agenda are council comments. Any comments this evening? Councilman Henderson.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention something that came to my attention here this week, and it's a event called Battle of the Badges, and I see some of our officers back in the back of the room here. It's on September 6th from 7 to 9 p.m. It's at Flynn Park, and it's a softball game, Flynn Park being at South Boulevard and DeQuinder. It's a softball game between the fire department and the police department, and it's hosted by the Troy Rotary Club, and it's a charity event that the proceeds go towards the firefighter memorial. They're saving for to put a nice memorial at Firefighters Park. And the event is $10 for adults, $5 for children under 12, and it's a great cause. I'm going to be there, and in fact, I want to throw it out there. I did earlier, but if they are looking for a third baseman, I'd play on either team. So. And I know Councilman Pennington pitches, so same.
Thank you. Any council comments? Councilman Hamilton.
This is all good news. Last week on Wednesday, August 14th, my daughter, Victoria June Hamilton, was born, 6 pounds, 3 ounces. We've had a lot of sleepless nights these last 5 days, but it was the greatest moment of my life, and I want to thank every Troy resident and council members and staff who've reached out and got me presents and everything. The support and love has been amazing, and just had to share that. It's the best day of my life.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Abraham.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to acknowledge the passing of a very important person in the Troy community, and that's Mr. Bodick of the Troy High Theater Department. He lost his life 2 weeks ago. His memorial service was last week. and he led the Troy High theater department for 30 years and made such a profound impact on his students, on their families, with his inclusive approach to making his students not better thespians, but just better individuals, and giving them the confidence of being able to be on stage and make yourself vulnerable and therefore make yourself stronger. There are 30 years worth of students whose lives he's impacted, and while I never had the pleasure of working with him or being his student, I can't tell you how many people throughout the community, even if they weren't Troy High students or Troy High parents, who had nothing but glowing remarks to say. So I wanted to acknowledge him at the table and express my condolences to his family. He may be gone, he will be sorely missed, but his legacy will live on in all of us, whether you've met him or not, because he has impacted the lives of so many students, even the ones that never made it to Broadway, though a few of them have. He was just a phenomenal human being who brought out the best in others, and I thank him for everything that he's done, and we'll be saying a prayer for him too.
Thank you. Any council comments? Next are reports. Any comments on the reports? I know there was a photo placed on the table for council regarding the rain event. I don't know if it was an event or not, but I don't know. Councilman Henderson, did you have a comment?
Yeah, so the photos were sent from a resident in the Sylvan Glen subdivision, and he said the water came in so hard through his backyard, it came through his door wall. So it didn't even seem like it was an eruption from underneath, just a mass of water. So maybe, Mr. Miller, can you give us kind of an update on what's been happening in the city? I know you weren't here to see the event, but.
Well, everything is completed now, and Kurt Bobensieb is here, who probably could provide a much more detailed report of what happened.
This poor resident got 5 feet of water in his basement in just a matter of minutes. So
there was a lot of activity when I was gone last week.
Yeah, I had a discussion with Bob about you leaving.
I'm not allowed to go anymore.
Right.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. As the report indicated, we did receive a significant amount of rain. These type of rain events, we take the duration of the time it took for the rain to fall combined with the amount of rain, and we put that into how many years, or statistically how often that should happen. This particular storm, we have a 6-inch rain gauge at Sylvan Glen, so it measures up to 6 inches, and that was full. So that's why our report suggests that it was at least 6 inches of rain. We have some residential rain gauges out there. Residents reported up to 9 inches. So we had a lot of rain. Our system is designed for what's called a 25-year storm, which happens a little bit more frequently than the 500-year storm, or chance of it happening in any year's time is 0.2%. So our system is not designed to handle that kind of volume and that short a duration. It would be very, very difficult to build an infrastructure, and I don't think would be financially responsible to build an infrastructure to be able to support that much rain in that short a duration of time. We did have some basements flooded. We had a lot of calls come Tuesday and Monday for that event. The system was at capacity, and you combine that with our Great Lakes that are at record highs as well, that only diminishes the amount of capacity that our drains can hold, because all of our drains in this area go to the St. Clair Lake. So that volume of capacity wasn't there. It's unfortunate. Hopefully we'll never see this again in our lifetime, although we said that almost 5 years ago when the 2014 storm happened. That impacted a broader area, but did have less rain. Fortunately, most of Troy is a separated system. So those storm water, it was clean water. It was not sanitary sewer backing up into basements.
Thank you, Kurt.
Thanks.
Any other comments on the reports? Councilwoman Hoderick.
Related to that, I had signed up for the Code Red, and I was out of the city, and I got the Code Red that alerted me to the fact that this was going on, and tried to pay really close attention and could see, you know, from following news reports, the significance of the event, and it reminded me of what we had seen 5 years ago. I just wanted to mention that behind the scenes, you know, we had roads that were impassable, and our police department trying to block it to indicate to people that this wasn't safe to travel down, but people still sometimes travel down them. And there were numerous calls to fire department, police department, to help people. And the interdepartmental work that went on, the DPW ended up bringing big trucks to block those roads to keep people from getting in harm's way, which then freed up our police department from having to wave people off from these roads and service in other ways. I guess I just wanted to acknowledge how organically that happens with this team and our city staff, and really applaud it, recognize it, and be thankful for it. No one was hurt. No one was hurt. And people can get hurt in these events. Without that kind of effort, who knows what might have happened. So we don't always get to see everything that goes on behind the scenes. Coming back to our early agenda item of the Citizens Academy, that's kind of what you learn when you go through the academy, is how these departments work together to protect us and serve us. And I don't want to take it for granted, and I hope we don't have another event like that, but you know, it could happen again, because it's happened twice now in 5 years, so thank you. I'm sure we learned something from each event, and that gets categorized, and I know how you guys are. Learn from it, and the residents that were impacted know, I hope they know that we do care, and we are looking at the infrastructure, and we're always balancing what we can do to make sure we protect everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't see that anyone has signed up for comments on items on or not on the agenda from members of the public outside of Troy. We do have a closed session scheduled this evening, so we will be in recess, and let's please get to the board room in about 5 minutes. Thank you for coming tonight.